Brian Rose. It is Friday night, 10:36 p.m., May 6, 2016, and I want to say thank you very much for checking out my podcast. I haven't officially given this thing a name yet or even a regular topic, but I'm very glad that I have an opportunity to jump on the internet and pontificate on things that I probably don't have any reason to be pontificating about. But thank you very much for indulging me and giving me a couple of minutes of your ear. I really appreciate the opportunity to present to you some of my rambling thoughts. Tonight, I'm going to be talking to you about one of my favorite things in the entire world, and that's professional wrestling. Now, for those of you who have known me for a long time, if you're family or friends, you know that it's one of my absolute passions is pro wrestling. I grew up with it. I've watched the product ever since I was a little kid, and I've seen a lot of good and a lot of bad. And I checked out WrestleMania 32 this year, and it was a great show. Watched NXT TakeOver Dallas. It was a great show too. And last Sunday night, I watched WWE Fastlane. Now, I mention all these things because here within the past year or so, maybe 2 years, I've not really been paying a whole lot of attention to the product other than just kind of going online, checking out some of the dirt sheets, and just kind of keeping track of some of the happenings and the goings on of the product. But one thing that I have been seeing in regards to WWE when I have tuned back in is that it's a lot like what it used to be in terms of 2010, 2011. In other words, to make it short, it's old and stale. And tonight, what I kind of want to talk about a little bit is what I would do personally to make the product better. I think the biggest problem with WWE right now is that it's overexposed. WWE is on TV too much. That's really the bottom line with it. If you factor in Monday Night Raw, which is a 3-hour show, SmackDown, which is a 2-hour show, plus they give you NXT, plus they give you WWE main events and WWE superstars and whatever other independent shows that they run outside the United States, you're looking at about 7 or 8 hours each week of live wrestling that's on television. And plus with the network, the WWE network, you've got wrestling on quite a bit. And I think WWE is operating on an outdated business model. I think overexposing the product has really hurt the product some. And I've always been a big fan of, less is more when it comes to pro wrestling. One of the things that drew me to it when I was just a little kid, we didn't have cable, we just had regular old school broadcast TV. So if we wanted to watch the show, it was either WWF Superstars of Wrestling on Saturdays and Wrestling Challenge on Sundays. And then every so often you would see Saturday night's main event on NBC where it was big name versus big name. So it was like a pay-per-view. And if you wanted to watch like WrestleMania or SummerSlam or whatever, then you'd have to wait till it came out on tape. So less was more. It made it much more intriguing to watch, made it a lot more fun, and it really helped me get into it. And I think now, because of the ease of access and the amount of original programming that's on television, I think that the product is way too overexposed, and even the look of the television show itself is just out of date. Going on and watching WWE, it looks a lot like how it did back in 2002. It's just tired, it's uninspired, it's not a very good product or show rather to watch on television. It's just not a good thing. So what would I do to fix it? I'm playing the role of the smart. What would I do? Well, I think what I would do, first and foremost, is I would eliminate the third hour of Raw. I don't think that Monday Night Raw needs to be a 3-hour show anymore. I think once in a great while, it's kind of a cool thing, especially if they're doing like WWE old school, or if they're expecting like a lot of legends on the show, or whatever the case may be. You know, having it to be a 3-hour show each and every Monday night is just ponderous. I remember when WCW was really popular in the late 90s, 1997, 1998. They were running a 3-hour show, and at first it was pretty cool because that's back when WCW was still watchable, but towards the end of its run, it just became ponderous television. And in fact, WCW, a lot of what they did with their first hour was they basically turned it into sort of a pre-show. So they gave you no reason to really tune in and watch the show. And WWE, it kind of seems to me like with a 3-hour show, they're filling it with a lot of filler and a lot of non-wrestling segments. And here's something else to think about too. I don't have cable, so I don't watch Monday Night Raw, at least all 3 hours of the show. I happen to catch it secondhand on Hulu. So with that said, it's an hour and a half showing of Raw, and it gives you the gist of what happened. WWE really needs to trim out the third hour of Monday Night Raw. It's just too much television. So first thing I do is I would cut Monday Night Raw to 2 hours. Second thing I would do is I would eliminate SmackDown. I don't think that there's any viable reason to have a secondary show on USA Network. I know that Vince has the contract with NBC to broadcast SmackDown on Thursday nights on USA, so I know that that's probably not going to happen. They're probably not going to get rid of SmackDown, but I think that it would go a long way towards fixing the product if they decided that they wanted to eliminate it, because it's overexposing the product. Another thing that I would do, if you're going to cut SmackDown, I would change up the broadcast team. They hired a guy on SmackDown. His name is Mauro Ranallo, which I'm not really familiar with, but I've heard really good things about him with his work in New Japan and some of the independent promotions. He's one of the better announcers in the business today, from what I understand. So, since JR retired and since the King is still there, but he's not really, I don't know that he's on SmackDown anymore. He was. I don't know if he still is, but I would probably go with a broadcast team of Mauro Ranallo and maybe Michael Cole. And if you're going to put a wrestler in as a color commentator type person, maybe JBL. So if you're going to do the 3-man team, I would make Ranallo your straight guy who calls the play-by-play. I would have Michael Cole be your babyface guy, and then I would have a guy like JBL root for the heels. I'll get to NXT. I haven't discussed that yet. But anyway, so that would be your announced team. I would change up the scheduling for Monday Night Raw. I think doing it kind of like how they did back in the late 90s, where they would show an episode of Raw live and then tape the following week's Raw on Tuesday night that same week. That would give wrestlers some time to rest and to recoup. One of the problems that WWE has faced this year alone has been catastrophic injuries. You know, with Seth Rollins, John Cena. I know that a couple members of the Wyatt family's down right now. Enzo Amore just went out at Payback with a concussion. Daniel Bryan called it a career here not too long ago because of concussion symptoms. Randy Orton's on the shelf currently, so they've really had to scramble to fill the card with guys. And I think by reducing the amount of hours of wrestling that's shown on TV, you give guys an opportunity, I think, to heal their bodies. You know, so doing it like kind of how they used to do, where they would show a Monday Night Raw live one Monday night, and then the following night they tape next week's Raw, and then run a couple of live events towards the end of the week, I think would be something that they should consider doing for the, if no other reason, for the health and for the benefit of the guys in the industry, or in the company right now. So another thing too, since they have the network, I don't know that it's necessary to run a pay-per-view event every month like it used to be. That too is an outdated business model, and I understand the argument for it. I understand, what WWE is trying to do here, because they're trying to maximize their pay-per-view incentives by still running a big show every 3 or 4 weeks. But the industry is changing with the internet being as easily accessible as it is now. More people are getting away from, watching television on cable, and more people are streaming, which, makes the WWE network, I think, the wave of the future as far as how the company presents its product. So what I would do is I would use the network to leverage that. I would run maybe no more than 6 pay-per-view shows, for want of a better term, each year. And I would maybe do them every other month. So like in January, you would do the Royal Rumble. March would be WrestleMania. May would be the Great American Bash. July would be SummerSlam. September would be maybe Fall Brawl. November would be Survivor Series. And those would be your 6 shows. And then this would give creative an opportunity to write compelling storylines that would lead up to those 6 shows. And you can call them whatever you want, but I would imagine that they likely would use, the big 4, Survivor Series, SummerSlam, WrestleMania, and the Royal Rumble would be the big 4 that you would want. And then since they own, the trademarks for WCW, why not leverage a couple of those names? Maybe Starrcade, or Bash at the Beach, or whatever you'd want, So, that's what I would do as far as updating some of the pay-per-views. It would give, as I said, creative an opportunity to write compelling storylines, making it less being more. So, with that said, talking about the network, right now I think the subscription model for WWE Network is a flat $9.95 a month, and it gives you access to everything. If you wanted to maximize your profit and still, kind of leverage the network as your business model for the future, you could offer a tiered structure. And this is something else too, getting to the network, and I'll mention this here in a second. You could offer a base rate that would give you access to their archived videos. So like, for example, you pay $9.95 a month and you can watch whatever they have in their libraries. So all the classic ECW stuff, all the classic WCW stuff, all the classic whatever you'd want. It'd also give you access to, classic episodes of Monday Night Raw, SmackDown, whatever. So you'd have all that at that base price. The other part, the next tier up, this is where you would get, you'd pay like maybe $12.99 a month, for example. And it would give you all that, plus you'd have the live events like Royal Rumble, WrestleMania, things like that. So you're adding that as a tier to your subscription, so that way WWE's making more money, plus you as a fan are getting access to, the big name events. And then if you pay like the highest tier, then it should give you access to watch, like, say, the live stream of Monday Night Raw. And that was what I was going to mention a moment ago. With them having the network, there's really no reason for them to not have Monday Night Raw live on the WWE network as a